Hello, Biz Catalyst 360 and Northern Lights Publishing welcome you to RoundTable 360 with your host and moderator, Joseph Carabas. RoundTable 360 brings together people in the creative fields, dancers, thespians, poets, actors, musicians, authors, and others from across the globe in conversation about things that are relevant, irrelevant, serious, and fun. Today's discussion is Space as Art. Cultures across the globe and throughout history have recognized people's energies and places' energies need to mix well for both to prosper. Artist and art fitter Anne O'Brien leads today's discussion on living space, working space, me space, and you space. Today's guests include author and self-acknowledged survivor Joanna Banana, author and apiary Amy Almedo, and a host of others. Stay with us and enjoy.
Well, Joseph, thank you for giving me the honor of hosting
My pleasure.
today. And thank you everyone for joining our Space as Art conversation. So I'd like to start by citing a chapter in the book, The Creative Act, A Way of Being. And one of the chapters is titled Setting, and it reads as follows. We're affected by our surroundings, and finding the best environment to create a clear channel is personal and to be tested. Through the ages, and Joseph and I had talked about this, there are many cultures that have put names to concepts of surroundings. So hygge is the Norse word for hug. It's a Danish concept that has roots back to the Viking era. It celebrates cozy, comfortable spaces for the soul and mind. In Japan, they call it wabi-sabi, which takes its style and influence back from the Buddhist to find timeless beauty and imperfection. Feng Shui is the harmony between a person and its environment, and that stems back to the Chinese culture. More modern cultures claim style. In 1919, the Bauhaus movement was started in Germany. This is a modernistic approach that characterizes simple geometric shapes with the absence of ornamentation. This led the way for modern, mid-century, minimalistic designs, all of which incorporate the appreciation of natural elements. And as of late, our California Cool, or Cali Cool as they call it, it's a design that originated in California, which has clean lines, eclectic touches, natural materials to create stylish, relaxed, and inviting spaces. So today, I'd like to discuss our creative spaces. And I believe this quote from Robert Henry is a great place to start. The object isn't to make art, it's to be in that wonderful state which art makes inevitable. So having said that, what elements of your environment give you creativity? And how can we share that so that our comrades could maybe take some tips, feel more comfortable, and find out the why that we make this our creative space or space is. And they can be indoor and out. They can be not on your property. I think Kenneth says he goes and travels and finds a place that's conducive to his writing. And also, if you have objects that inspire you and are part of your decor, we can talk about that too. So I'd like to open it up, see who'd like to share. Anybody?
I'll bite if you want. I'll go first.
Oh, thank you, because I was going to say what inspires Joanna, but I didn't want to cheat. But
You didn't even have to call me out. I called myself out.
I was, yes, because one of her favorite objects and inspiration pieces are sunflowers.
Oh, I have sunflowers tattooed on my body for the winter time.
Okay, and you plant them every year so you can go out into a space and create in your own backyard, if I remember correctly.
Absolutely. And it also involves I don't know I know that on the bench, friendship bench, I'll sometimes do it from outside, but when it comes to client calls, I usually like to come inside for professionalism. So Mark doesn't always have this window, but I love to be outside and I call it my hammock office. That's where I find
Wow.
the most inspiration. So I set my hammock up. I have a little table that I bring outside and I have
Yeah.
my coffee and my water bottle. And then that's where I just listen to the birds. I sometimes I swear I could hear the grass grow. I could hear the plants growing when my garden's up and running. If you're just quiet, the amount of things that you can hear is just mind blowing. And then I also like to take, I don't anymore because of, I don't know if anybody's heard of the serial killer in the southeastern Connecticut area.
I did. Oh,
So I
yeah.
haven't been taking walks in the woods lately, but I do love to take walks at Stanger's, which is a wooded area by my house. And it's the same thing. If you're just quiet, you end up hearing more. If I'm at the gym, I want to put headphones in, listen to music, and drown out the sounds around me. But if I'm outside, I don't want to listen to anything except for birds. This morning at 8 o'clock when the kids went to school, I actually took a walk around the duck pond and I was listening to the geese and the frogs and the birds chirping and all the sound around. Um, and I actually had this thought, which is beautiful for today's Salon 360. When I was walking today, there was a high school class taking
Mhm.
pictures. It was a photography class, I'm assuming, because they all had these fancy cameras and they were walking around. And I kept having these, and I want to write about it too, but I kept having these thoughts. And my first thought was, where I grew up, there was no beautiful little duck pond to walk around and take photography class. They wouldn't have trusted anyone in my high school with a camera that was worth as much as what these kids were walking around with. And how lucky these kids are to be able to have the experience of, hey, it's 8 a.m. This is when you have photography class. We're going outside to take pictures of the universe. And I feel like that is just a beautiful thought in and of itself. And then my second thought, because I'm very much a Libra, so I need to balance my absolutely positive thoughts with my ew thoughts. And then I had an ick, and I'm like, oh, but then they're told at 8 a.m. they need to find their inspiration and they need to go outside and they need to take pictures. And then class is over at 8:45. We need to go back in the school. And sometimes it just doesn't happen in a 45-minute window. And there were, when the mass of the kids were around the pond, the geese weren't there yet. And then these two gentlemen stood back and they were, who knows if they were goofing around or if they were waiting for something, but they were the only two by the duck pond. And then all of a sudden, like five geese came flying in, and I love watching them land in the water because they kind of like do this little turn, and they have their own little way of landing. And the two boys that were there were like taking pictures, and they got pictures of the geese when no one else got pictures of the geese. The other kids were all up by like the play area taking pictures. And I just thought how lucky it was for them to have stayed behind. And as they're taking pictures, the teacher is screaming, "It's 8:45! Everybody's got to get going! You better run! You better run, or we're gonna miss it!" And in my head, I'm like, "Oh my gosh, she's missing the moment!" And I get that it's school, and I get that there has to be some sort of cadence and timelines and all of that, and I understand that, and that's kind of the beauty of life, that you get to have all those experiences wrapped up in one. But I do very much believe that creativity isn't something that you can put a time window on. So hopefully the kids got a little bit of a taste for all of that.
Yes, and the pictures, they can take the pictures and then they could put the pictures in their room, and they can, garner some inspiration from them, because just looking at those pictures can bring you back into the moment.
Bingo.
Yes. So Joseph. You're blocked, Joseph.
You're muted.
You're muted, Joseph.
Okay, let's do a 5-second rewind. Thank you so much, Joanna. That was very fascinating. And thank you for acknowledging me. I'm kind of curious based on today's topic, because I'm looking at everybody's, where they're broadcasting from, if you will. And my guess is everybody is in their quote unquote creative space, whether it is a virtual creative space like the Great Pines behind Amy, or Sabine, who is underwater, something, leaves underwater, something where it's green, I'm seeing.
Yeah. It's the sun. It's the sun after the rain that I'm waiting for. It's a grass, actually.
Okay, beautiful. Mark is surrounded by music and books and some awards. and a beard. So we have to love him for that. Anybody with a beard, we have to just, yes. No offense, Rick, but you're the outcast here, man. You're the odd man out. So I'm kind of intrigued by we're talking about creative space. I'm going to push it a bit and say the sacred space. I'm in the sacred space where I create, and I'm very much aware that it is a sacred space to me. So, recognizing that we surround ourselves with things we have emotional energy with, I'm not saying anything specific about Joanna having this blur, but it's very fuzzy, and that's fine. That's fine. But I was wondering if people could take a moment, Clarabelle and then Matt, but then people take a moment to explain how their space came about. You have beautiful artwork behind you, Anne. And, I'm assuming that has some kind of energy connection, emotional energy connection for you. That's all I wanted to say. Thank you. I'll be quiet now.
Clarabelle.
Please, Clara.
Yes, thank you. So, Joseph, I really liked that you mentioned sacred space when it comes to creativity. I think that ties in really beautifully with what I was thinking, what I was wanting to add about my creative space. So, safety, that feeling of safety is really important to me when I'm coming into a space to create. So, when I recently redesigned my office and redid it and redecorated, and having an environment that can cultivate that feeling of safety was really important to me. So I find that I create best when I feel like I have a little hidey hole, a little mountain hovel away from the rest of the world, and I can put other worries out of my mind and just focus on creating. So for me, something I prioritized in my redesign of this space was lots of soft, fuzzy blankets, comfortable chairs, soft lighting. I call it my cave lighting. It's pretty dim with the rock salt lamps, very natural lighting, and lots of plants. I find that greenery really helps me feel refreshed and grounded. So you'll notice in the background, I've got little vines hanging in the back, and I've got other plants all around me, but I think it's important to have a space where you can feel comfortable and you can just relax and focus on your creative process.
Yes, Clarabelle, thank you. And one of the things that you did mention, well, both lighting and plants, and textures and softness. But anyway, specifically, I wanted to talk about the lighting first. That is extremely important. Everybody's heard about SAD, seasonal affective disorder, with lighting, and going with the sunrise and the sunset certainly have different spectrums. And we are not in nature, so to speak, but we create that feeling with lighting, with our own lights. And you've got, some bulbs are cool, some are warm, and getting the right lighting to make you feel that safety or comfortable, or the environment which you can relax and let everything just flow out, is wonderful and really, really important. And I also compliment you for the plants, because it's part of nature being inside, and we're certainly all creatures of nature. And it really gives you that feeling of being within oneself, I think. So, Matt, how about you? What makes your sacred space?
Well, first of all, I want to say I also appreciate the notion of the sacred space, the place that you can come back to and feel, which, I'm putting it in my own words, the place that you can come back and feel rejuvenated again and again. And, coming from a visual art standpoint, I experience that pretty directly with with the art that's around me, not only my studio, but I also have I have an altar space as well that I've adorned with all these beautiful things that, I think as a person who experiences creative, I mean, we all experience creativity, but when you see something out in the world and you're like, wow, that represents me, that inspires me, and I want to be gravitated to that. I want to have, like, I have a number of different swords. No one had to sell me those swords. I just saw that. I'm like, oh my God, that I want that to represent myself in the space that I'm in. And I can come back to that again and again. And it becomes a feedback loop because I also then carry the essence of that thing with me. I also carry the essence of the artwork with me everywhere I go. And so, I think that's why when people say they love hanging out with artists, we're inspired all the time. And so that inspiration comes through us naturally. And you can do that even if you're not like a, full-time professional artist, right? That's something that we can all experience. And I think that we're doing, whether we think about it consciously or not, that the spaces around us are reflecting our state and reflecting how we actually are. And then when we do that consciously, it's like, wow, okay, that I can fill my own cup with these things that inspire me and carry that with me throughout my day as a person.
Yes, I like that. And it seems like these swords or these paintings, they're your friends. I don't know, do you talk to them or they talk to you in
Ooh.
an odd sort of energetic way?
I would say they definitely speak to me in
Yeah.
their own ways. I see a sword as an instrument extension of the hero on their journey. Even when you think about someone talking about sword play or how they,
Yeah.
like it being an extension of yourself. That's actually how it's referred to when you're in sword play. And I find that really fascinating. Not only physically when you're, doing sword play, but psychologically as well. Metaphysically, you could even say.
Yes. No, I agree, and thank you for sharing that because I'm sure we'll find that other creative people in our audience do have friends that talk to them. And Sabina, how about you?
Well, Matt gave me the perfect launch. I am also kind of a rather mobile inspired being, let's say. I can be inspired, like Matt, a lot by other artists, by fellow artists. So I love to go to the theater, see colleagues play, to the movies, obviously, or very simply, in parentheses, people who I meet in my day in, day out life. It can be, I don't know, for example, there's two elderly gentlemen that go for a walk every morning. They go past my office at 10 a.m. I pick, since people are my business, so to say, I pick a lot from that, and that can be wherever. So the mobile, it's not one particular space that inspired it. I don't need to be in a particular space to be inspired. However,
Mhm.
I give you the example of a project that is coming up for me now in about 8-9 days time. I will be traveling to Germany to start rehearsals on a play called Everyman, Jedermann. It's a huge classic play about a rich man's death, and we are playing like I did before it's a massive stage within one of the largest German fortresses. So the space in itself, if you arrive there and you start working with the team, that does something to you, obviously. It has a huge impact on everyone who is involved in creating whatever we wish to create there on stage.
Yes.
So also a totally contrasting example would be if I come to a rather claustrophobic film set, where I have like the camera like here, and I have to interact with a tennis ball as my potential lover, It's so there's nothing but machinery around me, lighting, people, cables, objects, you know. So I have to go to my inner creative spaces. So it's really, for me, it's I am, my creativity comes up wherever. It can be in the car. I get that a lot, by the way, while driving. I get a lot of ideas. And then obviously in whatever space I am in, and people. So that being said, I come back to what Clarabelle said. However, I do need, obviously, like probably everyone, I think, this what she called safe space. For me, in order to recover from, to go into the, I would like to say, nothingness.
Yeah.
From which something new can come, or where I can digest impressions that I've had, that I may use for a particular project, or maybe not for 3 years, and then suddenly there's a memory coming up. And that space for me is candles, campfire. We have a fireplace outside in our backyard. We have a fish pond and a water garden. So it's water and fire, basically.
Interesting.
Best in nature. That's my I think I never have dinner without a candle next to me, or I miss it when it's not there. Water and fire is, and if possible, outside in a lovely wherever natural space. Yeah, that's when but that's when that's for the periods in between the creativity, but which I do believe belong to this stuff, can come up or can be processed. That's about it, I think.
Well, thank you. And you've brought up a couple good points that I want to touch on, one of which I was going to do later, but you gave me the perfect segue. So the tail end of your conversation, you talked about water, fire, and there's air and earth. I mean, we're talking about the elements that inspire some of the designs of feng shui, and really bring us to being part of ourselves. And, you know, I think Joanna brought that she needs nature. So those things really do give us comfort and do make us feel safe. The other thing which I find interesting and is that, you know, when you were talking about your set, so your creativity and your environment give you the different characters, meaning, you know, you were talking about the fortress and going to Germany and being in that setting. That creativity for whoever you're going to be is set up to make that, to be, so you can be conducive and creative in that environment. So you wouldn't have a children's show with a fairy godmother under a fortress. So it just goes to show how important our surroundings are to be able to create the characters, either that you act on, that you play on, that you write about, or that you talk about, being part of you at that time. So you brought up some excellent points. And interesting that maybe some of the other guests can let us know, do they change environments when their characters of their books or parts of their poetry need other elements? So I've got to plug my computer in. But thank you, Sabina. That was wonderful. Amy.
Well, thank both of you for giving me a segue. So as I said, this is my part of my retreat behind me.
Yeah.
And from the beginning, I've tried to have all of the elements you're speaking about in nature.
Mhm.
And so I have made over 2 miles of hiking trails on the retreat, pretty much by hand, so that I don't disrupt the natural flow of energy in the land. And I have wanted to create this retreat for about 30 years, and it's twofold. Number one, it's for people who have gone through adversity, so they can help to heal through nature. And it's not going to fix what, if you broke your arm, I can't unbreak your arm, but if you have if you have emotional barriers with your arm, you can come out and you can learn how to heal that way. And there's all different types of elements. I've tried to use everything there, everything that I built a bridge, and I built it out of the trees that we had to cut down for the road. My home is also there. And we situated the bee yard. So bees' houses have to face south so that they get the maximum amount of sunlight. So that because the sun says, hey, wake up, it's time to go get honey, and the sun setting on the front door of their house says, okay, it's time to come back now, you're done working. And our house faces the same way, and our bedroom window does that. So we'll be able to have the clock of the earth instead of maybe some other clocks that tell us what time to wake up and go to sleep. But the second part of my retreat is an artist retreat. So whatever your work of art is, you come here, you step out of the busyness of the world so that you can help yourself get in touch with your best works of art. So whether you're a writer or a painter or pottery or whatever it is, you can come here and you can leave the rest of the world behind. I have different water elements. I have fire. I have the trees. I have more things that are more wet and things that are more dry. And I'm far enough out of the city, and I'm close enough to the ocean and to the river that the air here is pretty decent. So I've tried to go through all of the elements like that. And the really cool part is my friend's daughter has some type of degenerative disc disease, I think. Anyway, she's 35 and she can barely walk. She has to have braces on all of her legs and everything. And they came out last week because I want to make sure that my retreat is safe for people who have disabilities. And they were walking around, and if you're in an environment where the earth is whole and the soil is actually soil and not dirt, there's energy lines between the trees. And that particular day, the energy was very strong, and both of them had never seen it before. And it was the perfect opportunity to teach somebody else, like, here's the energy in between the trees. And it's different, even when you put your hand through it, and you could see like her daughter was so happy and awake and alive. So I can't fix her genetic issue, but I can make her feel more whole in the meantime.
That's wonderful. And it sounds like you've set up an area that's very circadian. You are all living in circadian rhythm as far as by the sunrise and the sunset and the energy between the trees. So it sure sounds like a good environment to create.
Thank you.
All right, Kenneth.
I'm sorry to be
going to create.
I'm the odd. I must be the odd person out. If you came into this room, which is where I do most of my work, you would see true chaos. Okay, I am a creature of chaos. And in the midst of the chaos, then I have the calming elements. So for me, it is a dialogue between chaos and calm. And I use, for example, I have dialogues with my stuffed animals. This is my puppy. And Willoughby was given to me by my wife on my birthday a year ago when I turned this many years old, to give you an idea of the chaos I live in. Okay, I'm now allowed to use scissors under supervision, though. But if you look around, as you look around behind me, I have storage bins up on a beautiful little Mexican I'm not sure what the word is, but like a closet-like thing. Up above those are Native American masks from the Navajo tribe. I'm constantly in dialogue within myself between the chaos and and I'm looking, and you mentioned earlier, I travel a lot of the time to write if I can. Now it's harder to do because of my wife's health, but I'm looking for that thing, that moment, that connection. And it may be a poem I'm working on, or at the moment, the thing I'm working most difficulty with. I'm writing a play with my friend who is in Nigeria. We've written a number of plays together. And this one requires us to have a gin. And writing a gin is something I've never done before. And I immediately thought of the movie Beetlejuice, so I rewatched that, and I got my friend in Nigeria to watch it. He didn't know what to make of it. But now I'm trying to create a gin. So my newest friend is this fella here, and he's been trying to help me. And he has a screaming goat. Okay. Now, I do not know why the universe put the screaming goat into my hands to help create a gin, but he and I have been screaming together, and I'm hoping that in those screams of that crazy, crazy, crazy thing, that I have to tell you, Zoom just told me to guarantee I'm still speaking English because it picked up the goat.
Oh.
But that's the kind of crazy chaos I live in. And when I live in it most effectively, when I can truly be in it most effectively, is when those things happen. And so I am waiting for the goat to teach me about the gin so that the gin can come and save the woman in the play that, Sabine, I would love to have you read sometime.
Kenneth, can I ask a question?
Of course, I'll try and answer it.
Okay, so when you were speaking, when you said chaos, because I've always thought that there's beauty in chaos, and when I find myself in those situations, I feel like it's a tornado. And when you're in the eye of the tornado, it's calm. And so I don't know if you're a big proponent of speaking to the wind, but do you like put your hand out into the tornado and kind of pull in what you want? Is that a good metaphor?
Well, I'm always fiddling with things. Okay, even when I'm sitting here, and even while the show is on, I don't know. I mean, I try and keep my hands hidden, but I'm doing things. I'm constantly involved in the chaos. Yes, I love the chaos.
Well, Kenneth, there's something to be said for that. And there is that point of creativity, and Mark can tell you I've done several paintings with that, but there is the conscious, then there's the subconscious, and there's always that internal conflict within us. I mean, you could say the dark and the light, the right and the left, and where that medium meets. And you, from a design standpoint, you have physically created both of those things and displayed both of those things in your surroundings so that you can come to that inner conflict so that they can meet. And I'm eyeing your little buzzard over there because he didn't have anything to say to me today.
Wait a minute. No, I have to.
What is it?
This is not a buzzard.
What
This
is it?
is California condor.
Ah.
And they are wonderful birds. And I want to tell you, this is Willie. And I got him, I just started hosting here in Tucson a monthly open mic called the Historic Y, which is one of the really lovely cultural centers. And I'm so excited. And I went down to work with them about setting it up and all. And one of the things is it used to be the Audubon store. Now it's called the Bird Store. But anyway, I walked in to talk to the people and I saw Willie and I had to bring him home. So
well, he's great.
Isn't he?
And I'm sure he has, like your African masks and your pooch over there, they all have voices, and those voices are characters, and your surroundings visually animate you to be able to write all of
Absolutely.
what you do. So anyways, Mr. Mark.
Actually, my head just feels like it's full of so much stuff from listening to all this. So what you and Kenneth were just discussing actually made me think about the necessary tension in creativity and between chaos and order and whatever else in that. Ken, I would also tell you that although it doesn't really show on camera, there are parts of my space here that are completely chaotic. And I think that has to do with concentration, because when I'm concentrating and I don't want to be disturbed by order, keeping things in order, I'll just drop stuff, drop it on the floor, leave it on my desk or whatever, just so I can not be distracted from what I really want to do. I also want to say something about Sabina. When you were talking about the two elderly gentlemen, 20 some odd years ago, I worked at an ad agency. And to get there from where I lived, I had to drive sort of cross lots and through little suburban neighborhoods. And there was one neighborhood through which I would drive, and I would see two women out walking in the morning. And I realized one day when they weren't there that it unnerved me that they weren't there. So one night on my way home, I stopped at a flower shop and bought two little bouquets. And the next morning when I was driving to work, those two women were out there, and I stopped and I recognized that I might freak them out or scare them or something. So I said, please, ladies, you're welcome to think I'm crazy, but I'm not a threat. I would like you to have these. And I gave them the flowers. And I said, because when I'm driving to work and when you two are out here walking, I know everything's right in the world. So thank you. And they did not call the police. But I also want to say something about energy. I don't think about the energy in this space all that much. Obviously, it must be comforting to me in some way. But about a year ago, my sister and her husband were up with us for a visit, and we went to the Mark Twain house in Hartford. And we found out while we were there that they periodically allow people for a modest fee to write in his library. So Anne gave me that opportunity to go sit for 3 hours in Mark Twain's library on a Sunday evening in August. And I had just the vaguest idea for a story when I went in there. And so I went in and I sat down, and I don't usually do this, but I just closed my eyes and breathed for a few minutes. And then I pulled out my iPad and my Bluetooth keyboard and just wrote this story. And as a result, I published it on Kindle Direct. It's on Amazon. It's called Stolen. And it's nominally it's about a bank robbery, but I had no idea where that thing was going when I arrived in Mark Twain's library. And then it effectively wrote itself, and I attribute that to the energy in that space, which was palpable. And this is the moment when you jump in and say, well, no, actually, Mark's office isn't all that bad.
I heard her wince when you said you throw things on the floor.
Oh, we work so opposite of one another, but no, and I could see that he is comfortable. Mark, you are comfortable in chaos, and you're also very comfortable being surrounded by the things that people gave you, the books that inspire you. I think if you were to be in a sterile office, you probably could not create. And we talked about they all have energy, they all become your friends. And when you contemplate and turn around and you look at Batman or you look at the crumpled piece of paper on the floor, or maybe your grandfather's diploma. Those are the things that make you, going back to what Clara said, safe.
I just want to add this, and I'm going to suspect, Joseph, you almost certainly are aware of this, but one of my favorite Far Side cartoons shows a character that you figure out from what's going on is Herman Melville. And he's got crumpled papers all over the place, and it says, Moby Dick Chapter 1, call me Bill. Chapter 1, call me Larry. And he just keeps tossing these things. So anyway, I just wanted to throw that out.
Well, thank you. And throw a piece of paper for all of us.
Yeah, there you go.
There you go. Rick, how about you?
Okay, well, thank you. You can see where I do my writing is in the background, and for Joseph's comment, it does look pretty bare. The blank corner used to have a French desk where I've done all of my writing. The French desk is now to my left because I intend to put a bookshelf in that corner. The bookshelf is not there yet because I have termite damage on the floor, and that has to be fixed first. But this is where on the French desk, I finished my novel. I've been revising my novel, and when I write, I actually take a pen in my hand and paper. I can't do my original writing on a computer or a typewriter. I just can't. It just doesn't work in my mind. Exactly. And so that's where I wrote my 4 short stories, and I revised a flash fiction I wrote in high school to make it 3,500 words long, and that was my 3rd sale about 6 months ago. But as far as where I get my inspiration, I can't say I get my inspiration in this room. It's a quiet space, so I can concentrate. I suppose my place is my mind, which probably explains why I'm not that prolific at all. But people have been talking about inspiration. So some examples of my inspiration were it's always sort of being, wherever you are, just being attuned to what's going on around you. For instance, I grew up as a kid. We had a creek in the backyard with lots of trees and lots of squirrels. And squirrels, to me, were irritating creatures. And that's in my novel. When I was studying for the bar examination in my back porch, my father's house, I looked up and there was a hummingbird about 3 feet at the most in front of me, just hovering, looking at me. And then I just realized the main character was going to have a conversation with a hummingbird. Another time, again, same period of time, went with a friend to Stevens Creek Dam Park to barbecue some hot dogs, and because we were all stressed out from studying for the bar, and we were at a bench while the hot dogs were cooking on the fire grill. All of a sudden, she yelled and screamed. I go, what? And there were blue jays actually picking at the hot dogs despite the flame. I go, what? I thought birds were afraid of fire. And I realized that blue jays are just very obnoxious birds. And I put that in my novel. Some things aren't quite as locational inspiration. I was watching TV, maybe a football game or whatever, and then there was a commercial. Dodge trucks are ram tough. And they showed wildlife footage of 2 mountain rams butting heads. And I go, wow, rams are just magnificent animals. And it just occurred to me, again, my main character was going to exchange bitter words on a mountain slope with a mountain ram. I wish I had a place to inspire me, but although I live in Hawaii, that should be inspiration enough, one would think. But for me, it's just a little bit like Ken, but I won't say chaos, but just a place where I can retreat to write and and not be, bothered, interrupted, or just so I can concentrate. Because I will admit, and we've said this before, if you just wait to be inspired, you're not going to write too much of anything. You have to actually start. You have to have an idea, of course, but you have to start writing. And then if you're at all decent, inspirations will come to you, and your story will start to write itself, as Mark just said. But those are my comments.
Well, I think you're in the perfect space for you, because when I see, like you say, that I know it's because of termite damage, etc., that you have some nothingness going on. But I think your inspiration is you need that blank canvas so that you can listen and hear and take those experiences. If you had the way you write and where you're getting your inspiration from is stimulated outside of your space, but your space is giving you the proper environment to take all that auditory, what you've listened to and what you've seen, and to be able to not be distracted by anything. I think if you had a lot of clutter, that would be distracting to you. And that's why we're having this talk, because we're all so different. And it just lends to the importance of how the space and what you do and what you surround yourself with becomes the why. So, and that why is so that you can create better. Doesn't mean that we all have to conform or do it in the same way. We just have to make sure that we're safe doing it the way we want to and what brings out the best in us. So kudos to your sacred blank canvas. Amy, your turn.
Excuse me, just before you start, Amy, I just want to offer one thing that seems to be coming through here is however we are defining our creation space, where we actually take all of these things which have been given to us, for lack of a better expression. So, Rick was saying that he saw this hummingbird. Okay, that's going to be in there. Rams, okay. When it gets to the point where the ram's arguing with the hummingbird, Rick, I want to read that one. But what seems to be coming out of all this is where we put it all together, for lack of a better term. What I'm hearing is that is, whether it's creative or sacred, it is definitely a place of non-judgmentality. I'm an author, I can make up words. It is definitely a safe place, safe from the world, but also it seems to be safe from our own intrusions on the act of creation. So I think that's a very important piece that seems to be true for all of us, whether it's Ken, who's has his hands fidgeting, but he has his animals around him. Amy in the deep woods. I want to see Sabine in the castle. That'll be a kick, But it seems important that wherever we put our work down, whether it's pen and paper or typewriter or keyboard, whatever, or in Mark Twain's home, it is a place where the judgmentality goes away so that we can do. Thank you for letting me intrude. Amy, please, sorry for the...
No, I think that is good for what my comment is, because if you take like what Sabine said or Kenneth, so our introverted and our extroverted selves don't get inspired the same way. I mean, I can only spend so much time alone in the woods, but one of my favorite places to go when I worked in the city was right next door, and it was this cool little pub, and it was kind of like Cheers. You walked in and everybody knew your name. and you could sit there and have a couple of drinks, and you could eat something, and you could talk to any number of people. They were professionals. They were all extremely brilliant in their own ways. I mean, I was right in the thick of things. And a lot of times, whatever dilemma I was working in, wherever I got stuck, like I don't know where to go, what to do next, simply by listening to what other people had to say, feeling inspired by a few beers. It changes your perspective. And so you get input all day long, whether you get input to your introverted self, to your extroverted self. When you go into your safe space, your creative space, your sanctuary, that's when it all comes together, and you can use your hands to put it out, because you don't like take in all of that. I mean, I don't go around touching everybody at happy hour to get sensory input. That would be a little awkward. But when I go home, if I want stop, Joseph. But when you can take those things, like, and I'm sure Sabine, like, I met this person, and I don't have to talk to the tennis ball. I can talk to this person that I met inside my mind. and maybe Kenneth talks to his little stuffed animals over there, but his stuffed animals are what helps to create the novelty and some type of romance that he's writing, because he's being playful with himself. So all of these things touch on different parts of our personality. But my question to everybody else is how do you navigate those different parts of yourself? Because my introverted self, who comes in and writes books, doesn't in any way match my extroverted self that goes to a party and talks to everybody. And I need a little bit of time in between there so that my brain kind of like switches over to be a little bit more, I guess, human, instead of, here's this person taking all these images in my head and putting it onto a piece of paper.
Oh, Amy, that's why the space becomes so important, because it is that place where you can transition. It is that place where you can dump your own bucket. It is that place that becomes your friend. And I did want to mention, and this goes back to what Joseph said, is even when I do design for people, you have to really get to know them, because it isn't just a pretty place. It's a place that brings out the best in you, or sometimes if you need that character to be the worst in you, but it's where you can create and what supports you in that environment, whether they be physical things or a blank canvas or natural light or natural elements. That's kind of what it's all about. So thank you. Matt. Unmute, Matt.
So I really appreciate how much we're talking about different polarities, and I'd like to introduce a new one as well that might tie some together, or might even throw a wrench in the gears. We'll see. But I don't know how many of you have read the book Mating in Captivity by Esther Perel, but she basically, wonderful book. The premise of this book is, within relationships, within, the context of romantic relationships, you have this polarity between one side that is safety, security, predictability, and, the maintenance of the relationship, the things that like keep the relationship together, the cohesion, right? But that's not what sparks the excitement and the romance. It's actually comes out of distinction and autonomy, and there has to be some distance to cross, right? Like, think about if you're too close together, if you're enmeshed, there's no room for excitement. There's no room for, the newness and the novelty, right? So we can expand this understanding to, well, let's say our erotic relationship with life, right? So if you're too close if something is too familiar, then it's no longer as exciting as it could be. There has to be some distance to cross, right? So we're talking about going to a place or crossing some kind of distance to get to that place where you can be excited, where you can be in that creative space. Like, for myself, I will periodically like to go on driving cruises where I'll go to a certain spot. There's this like 3 hour loop, and it's all, I can get in tune with my appreciation of nature, and I grab the snacks, put on the tunes, and I just go for it, right? And I want that to be a treat so that it's exciting. I don't want to like live there and be able to do that every day, or it would lose that excitement for me, right? So, um, I think we're also talking about left brain and right brain too. Like the left brain wants the predictability, the knowing, the security, everything flowing as it should, you know. But then you have to have the right side. It wants the novelty. It wants that like, it has to have that bang to be able to come back together. It's like love wants to do, you could argue, oh, it's all love. Well, for our purposes, it's like love wants to do this, and then novelty and eroticism and excitement want to do this, right? And it's that dynamism that makes, the whole thing work. Again, like the feedback, you know. So, expanding this to like the introversion and extroversion, right? Your social battery and being around, certain people for certain periods of time. There, it's like you want enough closeness with that person that you're familiar, that you're like, hey, I know this person, or I feel like I know this person, have some familiarity with them, but also don't be like all up in my grip, you want enough autonomy that you can then appreciate when you come together, right? You have to, it's like you have your life, I have my life, and we come together when we come together, and having that balance, right?
Yes.
Having the dynamism.
Good points.
Hmm.
Good points. And I should move the painting that I painted back there, which is a diptych. And you could see that you could left and right, top and bottom,
Yes.
conscious, subconscious. So yes, it's the dynamic that makes us tick. Thank you. Thank you for
Right.
sharing. Mark.
I want to mention a couple things. One to Rick, you made the point that you always write with a pen or pencil and paper. And I can remember, I'm going to say somewhere probably early 80s, maybe mid 80s, I was walking during the summer, and I saw a gentleman sitting out on a little sun porch, and he was clearly typing at something. I don't know if it was like an early word processor or an early personal computer or something. But when I saw that, I knew that if I had such a thing, I would be much more prolific. And I think maybe it's because I grip my pen or my pencil really tightly, and so my hand gets tired, and my handwriting is almost impossible to read. And Joseph, you said something when you were speaking about intrusion. And I also wanted to note that while I was in Mark Twain's library, and I don't know if anybody else has ever been in there, but he had a fountain in there. And that I couldn't abide that sensory distraction while I was trying to write. So I'm fortunate enough that I have hearing aids. So I just pulled them out, and I couldn't hear the fountain anymore. And it worked beautifully, and I was able to concentrate. And on one last note about fountains, I'm just going to put something in the chat window for everyone. I'm also going to lower my hand.
Okay. Thank you. Kenneth.
Hey, yeah. We've been talking a lot about time, about space. We haven't been talking a lot about time. And one of the things that strikes me is if you look behind me, the door is closed. That means time has stopped in my home. No matter what's going on out there, unless the place is burning down or my wife is having a heart attack, time has stopped. And I cannot tell you what time it is here. Okay. I mean, I can tell you by a clock, I can tell you that kind of thing. But I mean, in my head, where I am in time on any given moment, once that door is closed, can be past, future, can stop time so that I'm just in one particular moment. And that, to me, that's a very, very important part of the sacred space, if you will, of writing, because we are all of us caught up in this continuum of life. And it's even in some ways to be idealized. For example, earlier we talked about being caught in the circadian, oh, I want to have my house facing this way, so I'm like a bee or whatever. And I understand all of that. And I love all of that. And I react to one of the reasons I live in Arizona is because I don't like living farther north where I get less sunlight. But at the same time, I want to be able to control time. I want to be able to fix my time and have it be the time of this moment, whatever that moment is. And I'm wondering if other people also strive to control time in their creative ways.
Kenneth, may I ask, are there any windows in your office?
Yes and no. I keep it covered over. There is a window. I face it, actually. I'm facing it right now, but I have it nicely closed off with the blinds. So all I see is a little bit of light coming through. And at night, there's enough light coming from the street light that's nearby. So it's really not that discernibly different.
Excellent. Well, that's good. And the shades give you, having shades on the window or window treatments, give you that control. So you can control your environment so it can give back to you what you want.
Right. I used to have a roommate in college, and he could not stand ambient sound. And he actually took acoustic board and put it into the window so he couldn't see out. But more importantly to him, he couldn't hear the vagaries of somebody coming by and whistling or talking too loudly.
Interesting. Thank you. Sabine.
Okay, unmute. So I had actually something else in mind, but one more thing to Ken, same here. I also the closed doors, since we live in a community with our grown-up children, we share a big house. That's a very, very important thing. A closed door to our space means no entry. So I need that too, and I think everyone agrees on that here. Thank God.
Yes.
And it's being respected. I think it's a very important thing to make that time yours, whatever you do with it over a longer or shorter period of time, never mind. But that's a no-go to not even knocking at the door. If it's closed, it's closed. So, but what I wanted to actually say was I have a funny little story that illustrates, I think, and what you said about you are creating. You have you said I have to get to know people before I can design for them.
Yes.
You have a beautiful, beautiful space. Yes, and I was just thinking of yesterday. I had a headshot shooting yesterday through our actors community, and we had a time slot of 2 hours each actor, and with a wonderful Beatrice, a wonderful French photographer, with who I had never worked before, and they had rented our Actors Association had rented this neutral space that you mentioned, a beautifully designed house. Actually, it's a house. It's two very old properties in between two roads, and they joined. And anyhow, and so because the photographer had asked for big luminous spaces, and that we found in this fantastically designed, beautiful space. I mean, the whole walls were windows, huge inner yard. But we entered the house, and I didn't realize that. But now, since you say that, it is a rental, and it was perfectly cleaned and neat and naked, with a few designer bench in good lights, but basically empty and naked, which was perfect. Anyhow, but what I want to say is, we worked and we got along like a house on fire, Beatrice, the photographer, and I, and we inspired each other and fired each other. And we had, she had her different objectives. We had makeup, and we changed hair, and we were busy working for 2 hours. And suddenly the doorbell was ringing at the doorbell, and we realized the 2 hours are done. We're done. It's the next actor is coming. Okay. She said, she went to open the door. We finished the thing. And then she led him down to the space where we were able to change and had our little suitcases and makeup things stored. And I realized, oh my goodness, before she can start shooting in the different spaces in this location, I had my things, my makeup stuff, hair, all my clothes, shoes, gadgets spread all over the place, all over the house. And so had she, equipment, soft boxes, this light and that light. And so we realized only then we had created a chaotic space. Because Mark said also he drops things just. If he's busy working, he just drops things. He doesn't have the time to arrange anything. That is exactly what happened. So all the way through the two houses, our stuff was distributed everywhere. So we had to apologize and say, okay, give us 5 minutes so we get our stuff together and put things a little bit in order, because she could continue working with the next person. So, but what's funny is only now, since you said that, I realized that.
Yeah.
We had to make the space a little bit our own, right, before something could happen.
Exactly.
So that's thank you.
Well, thank you for sharing that. That just illustrates our point. So it was very good comment.
But you should have seen this. It's like everything. And I didn't even remember. The thing is, I didn't even remember, okay, I had a turtleneck. Where did I have this? So I had to run all the way through the house to find everything again. Yeah.
Thank you, Sabina. Joanna, your turn.
It's me again.
Yes.
So I know we've talked about time now, we've talked about space, and I want to bring up perspective, because I think in my office that's something that can be a little humorous. So the way that my office should be, the way that it feels right, is with my desk on this wall here.
Mm-hmm.
Then when I have my desk on this wall behind me, you see, which you can't see any of this because of the way the camera's facing, I have a bookshelf with a bunch of books. I have my very tall begonia over here. I have a fiddle leaf fig. And then on this window to my left, which no one can see, I have a gorgeous little wooden, hangs on the curtain rod, and there's 9 pots to put plants in it. So I have all plants over there. And you would not know by looking at my blurry background that that's what's there. But now why, you may ask? Would I change my desk to a place that I don't like? And why do I blur out my background? And that's because I have kids, and behind me is the bench that they put all of their balls and helmets. So I have basketballs, I have 4 helmets, so it looks messy. So I don't really want everyone to see the mess of helmets, but that's also life here, right? So I'm not going to tell my children that they can't store their things where they're properly stored just because it's going to mess up my background. So then why don't I put my desk back over there? And that's also life, and that's also the perspective of life, because we got pet rats. So I have 2 pet rats right over here, which is also why I blur my background, because I don't think Mark and I would like to have our clients on the phone and have a little rat jump up into the screen every once in a while. It's probably not something we'd like to do. So I keep the rats there because I like to have the window open so the smell, because sometimes they're a little stinky, goes out the window. And my chickens are right there. So I feel like the rats and the chickens can have their own little like conversation together. And whether or not they do, that's what lives on in my head as my creative little, the rats and the chickens are friends from afar. So when the rats, because they don't live forever, when they eventually go, I will want to put my desk back in the appropriate location so that the proper background and the proper lighting comes in exactly as I want it. But until then, I think perspective is a funny thing, right? Because the perspective that my camera is now is different than when it's over there, and it's going to be different than when it's over there, but it's all the same room and it's all the same energy and it's all the same space. And I get joy out of having the rats in here because it's another life, it's another movement. I'm sure you guys saw Minnie jump up. I have a dog. So I feel like it's something that gives me energy to be around other energetic beings. So I think that I just wanted to bring that one part up just to say that even though we are working and we have our one background that we like to see when we're on our Zoom calls, it doesn't really encompass the whole entire room, and it doesn't really encompass everything that brings us life and joy. And I would pull one of the rats out, but they're sleeping right now.
Well, Joanna, I think this brings a good point up. Well, two things that I got out of your description of your space is, one, call it what you will, plants, rats, chickens, kids, helmets. You're surrounded by love. And those are the things that love you and you love back. And that in and of itself inspires you and makes you creative, brings you the joy, brings you the energy that you need to do. And also, it's kind of euphoric. We'd love to have all the space in the world, but sometimes we can't. And sometimes in the design world, it's called dual use. And right now, your room is being used for a meeting. It's not being used for creativity or downtime. So, you've ingeniously made a change so that you have that public persona, because like you say, clients wouldn't appreciate, the wheel or the dog. Some do, but so again,
I'm sorry to interrupt, but what Joanna really meant to say is that clients wouldn't appreciate more than one rat.
oh God. Still have
so
little remnants of but anyways, there is dual use that we just sometimes don't have a space to do specific things. So that space has to act and give you what you need at the time you need it. So you've done good. Thank you, Matt.
Y'all really got my wheels turning. One, talking about perspectives, and I want to pick up the torch on Candace's question about time as well, how we manage time. So in the type of tasks that you do, I'll start there. It's the hustle culture, quote unquote, whatever the thing, like when the more you do, the more the more attraction you're going to get, the more all that type of stuff, which it's great to have that type of gumption, I think, but it can often lead to the very worst, the most inefficient ways to do things, because you're thinking in terms of, I'm going to do this the hard knuckle way, that you're not thinking this in terms of, well, your mind can go, well, is that actually, like, what are you actually trying to accomplish? Like, is that actually the most efficient way to do something? Is that the most creative way to do things? Or are you just going with the least creative way and just thinking, if I just do all these repetitive actions, then it's going to lead to that result that you want to get, right? Whereas if you take a step back and you say, how can I do this in a way that is going to create the most ease, is going to hopefully be the most enjoyable, or at least the most tolerable, right? And still achieve that same result, so I can make the best use of my time, right? Rather than getting burnt out and doing the same thing over and over and over again, and maybe getting frustrated at not getting the type of results that I want to get, which is going to lead to you not doing that thing in the future anyways, because you're like, well, this doesn't work, so fuck this. Why would I continue doing this?
Yep.
So it's these different motivations that are taking place. I don't know how many of you are familiar with the 4 archetypes, like warrior, sovereign, magician, and lover. You know, that warrior, there you go, Sabina. You hear what I'm putting down. So the warrior is going to be the one that's going to, you know, have that charge. And it's great to have that if you can have that that push towards something, that dynamism towards actions that are actually, you know, intelligent to make, right? So doing the work, and in some ways I'm saying work smarter and harder, right? To put them both together. It's weird. I will say it's weird how we have this dichotomy where you have that push, but then it's like, you know, is that really the most efficient way to do things? Which is kind of a lazy motivation, right? It's kind of it's weird how there's a purpose for that laziness. Like, do I really have to do all that? You know, what if I could automate this or delegate this and really focus my action, you know, on the things that are going to be most fulfilling and are going to create the results that I want to create. And, you know, I don't burn myself out, and I can give myself back that time that I want to do, which is one of the goals in the first place, right? You know, to be able to have a thing that is sustaining, so you can give yourself back that time. And what we really mean is freedom, right? The freedom of your time to be able to do what you want to do, you know?
Well, Matt, thank you. And that in and of itself, time and motivation and what makes things work for you and how long does it take you to get creative could probably be another hour, you know, a whole nother show. But yeah, so being respectful for time, but that's a good one. I want to get Amy, Kenneth, and Sabina in. Amy.
So my question is about time, because when I'm completely immersed in something, I feel like time doesn't exist.
Mhm.
In my living room, when my children were growing up, I actually had an old clock and there was no hands on it. It was an antique clock. It's really cool. And I called it my shaman clock because we had no TV. We did have music in that room. It was very warm. It was very loving and comfortable, and it had blankets and candles and all of those things. And it's because I didn't want time to exist. I didn't. I was divorced, so I had my kids 50% of the time, and I thought, well, if I have them 50% of the time, I want real time. I don't want to be staring at a TV. I want to have communication with them and be in a relationship. And so when Kenneth said he wants to control time by blocking out the rest of the world, on the flip side of that, I didn't want to control time. I wanted time not to exist. So I didn't know if our definitions were similar or how other people viewed either controlling time or ceasing time. Because when I'm immersed in something, I can work for 12, 14, 15, 16 hours and it doesn't feel like work. It doesn't feel like I'm putting myself out. If I'm doing something I don't like for an hour, you know. And so I didn't know what everybody else's perspectives on controlling or not controlling time would be.
Interesting. Yeah, and like I said, I mean, you know, me, if I'm creating, there is no clock. I'm like suspended in time. I have no gauge. But anyways, that, like I said, could be another conversation, and a good one. I think we could all benefit from that. Kenneth.
Yeah. First of all, I want to clarify what I meant by that is that I am in that moment, whatever that moment is. So if I'm writing a book that's set in the 1880s, then I'm in the 1880s. And I can go back and forth within that. So it may be I'm working on an earlier chapter. So all of a sudden my time just moves and I'm unaware of external time. I'm only in that moment of time. Okay. Yeah, I just wanted to mention, we've kind of talked about other things indirectly, like I mentioned my roommate in college who had to keep the sound out. But sound is part of space. Some of us listen to music, some of us prefer quiet. And then I have to say, rats. Oh, goody. Let's talk about smell. I mean, one of the most iconic pieces of writing in the world is is about deja vu and the smell and how it takes us back to, right? And Proust. And do we manipulate smell? Now, my wife likes to have a kind of, I don't know, room deodorizer. If I were able to do it, I would have seriously a fart smell. I would want human fart smell coming through my room and going out, coming through and going out, just to give it its own earthiness. I want the earthy odor. She wants sky and something. I don't know, linen and sky or something. Sorry, not my thing. Give me a good old-fashioned sweaty fart or a sex smell or something that's going to get me going. Ah!
Maybe you should try eating a burrito. That could help.
I love it.
And it is our strongest scent. Thank you. Sabina.
I only have one question for you, and everyone has talked a little bit about their points of view and habits. How about you? Do you have one particular creative space, or are they diverse? Are there many?
No, I do have one, and it is dual use because I like being as close to nature as possible. So my space has a lot of windows, and I like to look out, but we also use it to entertain. So one corner is where I don't even have a desk anymore. I've got a table, and my creative tools, whether they be paintbrushes or pens and pencils, and then my business stuff is all kind of tucked away. So differently than Mark, I have to be very organized, and then my desk kind of clean, and then I'm able to create from that. I also need to surround myself with things that I made and things that people have given me, so that, like Kenneth, I mean, they become my friends. I have plants, and, I have some things like my mother, who's no longer with me, gave me things that I've made. And so it's almost like my bags are packed, and part of my soul and part of my past and my experiences come and sit at the same table with me, so that I'm taken from Joanna, surrounded by love or memorabilia. I talk to myself a lot. So I have conversations with my plants and, my pets, but also with myself. And as far as the sense of, and I like natural light. I love the sun. Those are the things that inspire my soul. But
And if I may,
what?
one of the things, and for the benefit of the group, one of the things that Anne believes in wholly is, I'm going to use this term, and adaptive reuse. So if you were inclined to just move your camera so that folks can see the piece that's over your right shoulder, which is an antique, I think it was an armoire, but that's where Anne keeps all of her office stuff. And if you could turn it some more, Anne, so that they could see the antique cabinet where you keep all of your art supplies.
And if you could just do the full 360 to show them the beautiful window.
Yeah, and there's an easel over there where Anne paints, and then if you keep going, we drove up to Massachusetts to get that big cabinet where she keeps her art supplies.
Yeah.
Yeah, Anne is not she's not into buying necessarily new things, but
And I love using, and here's the inside of my cabinet. So I've got crystals and
Wait.
things that people gave me and teddy bears that I made and paint charts and Tibetan bowls. And then over here, I've got, I don't know if you can see it. So this is an antique baker's rack instead of a bookshelf. And now I'm taking paper because I hate throwing paper out, and I'm making vessels. So this kind of adaptive reuse. So I'm all over the place.
And that's what we love about you.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, these are my latest.
can I just give myself one plug here? I have a shredder, and Anne wanted the contents of my shredder, and I had shredded an old driver's license and some old ATM cards and stuff in there. So I gave her a little extra texture for her paper mache.
How many status reports are in there?
Thank you very much, and thank you, everyone. I definitely appreciate at the end of this meeting finding out that Anne makes yarmulkes on the side. That's going to be something that's going in a story somewhere.
Yeah.
Thanks again, everybody. This has been, as always, a wonderful conversation. I learn and I grow every time we meet. This time, especially, I hope at some point I will grow enough to fill my space. Thank you for watching RoundTable 360, where creatives from diverse fields and across the globe gather to discuss what's relevant, irrelevant, serious, and fun. RoundTable 360 is brought to you by Biz Catalyst 360 and Northern Lights Publishing. Our shows are taped the last Thursday of every month at 7:30 a.m. Hawaiian time, 10:30 a.m. Pacific time, 1:30 p.m. Eastern time, 6:30 p.m. London time, 19 hours 30 minutes Central European Standard Time, and whatever time that converts to wherever you are. Please join us at http://nlb.pub/roundtable. That address is on your screen. See you next time, and until then, stay well and safe.